Okay, folks, I did get the clearance here. We are live with the special edition of the Ripple Effect, and we got Kimberly here joining us, and Erica was supposed to join us as well here. But this is a special edition of the Ripple Effect with Oakland #3, and we're going to talk about an important topic today, the DEI committee. Hi, welcome, Kimberly. We just went live here, and I'm just doing the introduction for the broadcast, and we may even get one more host here. But I just think this is a wonderful story about Rotary. We have an important event coming up that is through DEI, based on really a successful event a couple months ago with Evan Moss, an anti-racism activist. So I'm going to let you guys talk about this stuff because you're the experts. I did want to briefly introduce you. We have Celeste, past President Sess, and Kimberly here. And if you don't mind, guys, can we just go around and have you do a brief introduction to yourself and what you do on the committee, and also if you want to share your career or other work on Rotary, feel free to do that as well. Let's start with you, President Sess, past president.
Okay, my name is past President Sess Butner. I was with Rotary. I was president of Rotary when we formulated the DEI committee. This is made it a standing committee for the Oakland Rotary #3. We've come a long way since then. I've been, I guess we've been through about a year and a half of the whole DEI experience, and it's been a little rough, but well worth it, I think, for what we were trying to accomplish. But anyway, I'll talk more about that, but I'll introduce you to Celeste Gordon, who is the chair of our committee, DEI committee.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sess. Hello, everyone. I'm Celeste Gordon. I'm chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at Rotary Club of Oakland. I've been in Rotary in this club for about 5 years, and I also sit on the District Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And we started this effort under Sess Butner, and the board unanimously voted us in. My background is in nonprofit management and strategic planning, and it's been an honor to start this effort and follow along with Rotary International, who is extremely supportive and has put a lot of effort into running this forward. And then I will pass this to Kimberly.
Hi. Hi, I'm Kimberly Miller, and I've been in Rotary since 2019, and was delighted to become a part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, largely supporting and working hand in hand with Celeste as we sort of take baby steps to try to learn how we can support a really worthy, wonderful, engaged organization and taking that next step forward. And so happy to be a part of that.
Okay, great. And you guys have made some recent reports to the full club, but also in committee. And I just see how far you've come. And I wanted to just talk about a little bit about kind of where you've been and where you're going. If you don't mind, we can start off with Celeste to just give us an overview, and then past President Sess can fill in, and Kimberly, if we leave anything out, just kind of where we've been and where we're going with DEI, because I've seen so much progress made, particularly recently.
Sure. So our committee, when we started, we really wanted to look at how members felt about the club and get some guidance from them about where, what direction we wanted to go. So, we started off, we surveyed the members on their, how they felt about the club in terms of belonging. And we started there. And we also took time as a committee to just, look at what were our values, what direction we wanted to move in. And what the board actually voted on was for us to infuse diversity, equity, and inclusion, infuse good practice in these 3 things in everything we do in the club. So it's not just an activity. It's not just who our vendors are. It's not just what the face of our club looks like. It's not race. It's not gender. We're looking at everything. We're looking at our practices. We're looking at how we recruit members. We're looking at, what is our system for membership in terms of funding and things like that. So we're looking at everything we do in the club and how we can better do that.
To Seth or Kimberly, if you have anything.
Well, sure. I think Celeste has said it all. We've come a long way, though, from the beginning. It really, our membership is somewhat older membership that we have throughout the entire club. As we are, most of us older people, we get set in our ways, the way that we do things, and like to try to keep it that way for a long time. And I think some of our membership, to be honest, I think some of our membership were skeptical a little bit of a DEI committee. And they saw it much more as just a race thing. And they said, well, we got good diversity here in the club. And so we got it tackled. Well, it's not just about race. It's about how you feel as the club and how everybody feels wanted, heard, understood. It's all those things about each and every one of us that are members of Oakland Rotary number 3. And I think where we've come since then, we realized that that was the case. And we come to that so that we're going to be presenting activities and things that we do and trying to get DEI practices interwoven in everything that Rotary does. Is that about right, Kimberly?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with what you're saying. And I again, just sort of doubling back on what Seth is saying, like there is a little bit of hesitance, I think there was before, around what this was all about, and aren't we just fine as the Rotary we are now? And to get people out of that thinking, is uphill. And just because we're saying, look, we want to look at something from a new angle, we want to tackle something with new eyes, doesn't mean that what we're doing is wrong. It's sort of saying, how can we really understand what's going on now in our world? And how can we incorporate some new thinking to what we do? How can we better ourselves from that perspective? And it's not just about race. People oversimplify what diversity, equity, inclusion is all about and think it's just a black and white thing, because it's so easy to do that. Media helps us with that for sure. But it's much more in depth. Seth talked about how we might see each other as Rotarians, members, deepening our ability to hear each other, talk with one another. But it's also about who we serve in our community. When was the last time we think, we're a service organization. When is the last time we've really examined that? The organizations we traditionally serve, the new organizations in the community that might need service, new ideas, new services being offered. When are we giving the opportunity to examine that, right? And really widening our lens about the people in our neighborhood who are doing good work that we could support. So I think it's overwhelming when you just sort of take it all in like this. So we're taking it baby steps, right? And just saying, let's look at each other, let's see each other, let's hear each other first. And then let's take the steps that it takes to enrich the club and support the club towards, going deeper into the 21st century and being, more welcoming to all humans.
And I've really admired the process of what you've done with the committee, that it's really a constructive, positive conversation about how to make positive change. I think a lot of when you start talking about race, there's so much on race out in the media that's thrown around that's really about division and fighting, when really, that Evan Moss, that first conversation was so meaningful and constructive that I feel like, that is actually a solution to some of the problems we see, you know, the process that you use and what you go over, and really the methods that you use. So I know a lot of people, the kind of status quo dismisses you know, diversity, equity, inclusion by saying, well, we don't need anything, this is fine what we have. But we all know that's not the case. And I think you know, a lot of what you guys, the work that you do proves that, because you come up with a lot better results, as we're going to talk about in some cases. And I think, you know, that Evan Moss event on the recent one and then the upcoming one, I was just wanted to see if you could tell us about this upcoming event, what you're trying to do with it, and why people, the community, might want to come check it out.
Sure.
That's going to be on February 23rd. I will put the details in the chat. At 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Oakland Asian Cultural Center in Oakland. It is open to the public and guests are welcome. So Celeste, would you like to lead us off, or feel free to whoever?
Sure, sure. So Evan Moss, when just around the time of George Floyd, he was working at Apple. And he's a person of color. So he was working at Apple when all of that happened, and was doing a lot of processing, grieving, and soul searching around the event with George Floyd. He had a child at that time, and he's in a mixed race marriage. And he wanted to just communicate to the world what was going on with him, processing that information. And he put out a viral video that went out, and his thought was that we just needed to really have opportunity to have open, honest, safe conversation around race. And his idea was, once he got this video out and people wanted to talk to him, people wanted to talk about it, they just didn't know how, or they didn't feel safe to do that. And Evan has this amazing way of creating a space where his philosophy is he becomes the most vulnerable person in the room. He actually processes to prepare for that role. And when he comes in, through that, you can ask him any question, you can talk to him about anything. And it's a really safe, people open up to that because he's so present and so honest and so sincere about what his experience is as a Black man in the United States and as a father of mixed race children. And yeah, I would invite anyone who has an opportunity to come, because it really is it's inspirational and it's transformative, the experience. People didn't want to leave, which is why we invited him back for an evening in a more intimate setting for a longer period.
So this is just really, David, a continuation from the time he visited us before. I think it was back in November, if I'm not correct, that he was. And it was just at one of our regular meetings, the regular speaker for one of our regular meetings, half an hour, 20-minute talk, but it just scratched the surface. And here we have an opportunity to expand that engagement a little bit and let everybody feel more comfortable about talking about our diversity and how we include people and how you feel when you walk into a room with mixed people. So, and how you can process that whole feeling and come out of it feeling good about it. So this is our doubling down on that experience that we had in November, so that the rest of the Rotary members, every Rotary member, can come in and enjoy the experience with Evan Moss.
Great. Kimberly, do you have anything to add to that?
Agreed with my friends.
Yeah, no, he's very good. It takes a certain kind of skill and knowledge to be able to do what he does there. It really is a transformative experience. And kind of brings me to my next question about what you've learned through this diversity, equity, and inclusion effort. I just really think that you've kind of built this committee from the ground up, and what have you learned that, and how's that affect your work going forward?
Patience.
That's a good one.
Can I
No
say that
question.
again? Patience, patience, patience.
Not just with the other people, with my own self, right? Just where are we in the process? How fast should we go? How slow should we go? We have to bring everyone along. How do we create an atmosphere where we're all at the same place, on the committee level? I mean, patience. It's super messy because none of us on that committee are professional facilitators steeped in the work and the academic underpinnings of diversity, equity, inclusion. I mean, the three of us are just using our lived experience and common sense and kindness and our desire to be good Rotarians to when we engage at the committee level. I mean, I don't mean to speak for you all, but that's how I feel. It's like it is not rocket science, but it is, our lived experiences that shape the way we interact with the world. So, I mean, to me, patience is the number one thing I've learned.
Well, that's great. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, Kimberly. David, you'll see that well, first of all, you got to go back that the Rotary International is just now starting to emphasize diversity, equity, and inclusion. The president, for the first year, this year, the president organized a diversity, equity, and inclusion portion of Rotary International. Our district has the committee as well. And we're like the first ones that had come out with the committee in the first place. So they wanted to try to leverage themselves off of our experience. Well, we're non-professionals, as Kimberly has said, and we're just kind of going through this. And our committee is very diverse as well. It's not just, well, we got 2 Black women and 1 Black man here, but it's not just Blacks that we have on the committee, but it's everybody seeking to try to understand one another throughout the whole thing. And what I've learned more than anything else is that it's a process. You got to take your time to go through it, and you can't force feed anybody into it. And that's what the problem that we had so often with diversity, equity, and inclusion committees in any organization is they had a tendency to somehow force people into a way of thinking. This is not trying to enforce anybody into any kind of way of thinking. This is set up solely to make you feel safe and comfortable when you're communicating with another member of the human race that's out there, that's in an organization with you, that's seeking to achieve the same exact results. We're trying to do good and serve the community, serve our community locally and international. And we're trying to do things well. We want to respect one another's opinion about what they do on everything. So if I've learned anything, that it takes a process to go through, and you can't formulate everything and force everybody through that a narrow tube that you might say that it is for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
How's that, Dave?
Well put. And Celeste, did you have anything to add, or?
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what Seth said, that's so true. And, everybody comes with their own lived experience. Everyone comes in a different place in the process. And so both those things, that it's a process and that it takes patience, completely agree. The other thing I would add is that to be diverse or inclusive and equitable is not what you do, but how you do it. So, you can have a speaker, you can invite a Black speaker, but if how you present that speaker is not done with diverse thought, then, you're not encouraging good practice. So it's about how you approach things. So
Yeah, and
how
I wouldn't even say diverse thought. I would say inclusive thoughts.
okay.
Right? Like people, just to be more specific, because I know,
Sure.
but you could have an array of speakers, otherly abled folks, folks from different nationalities, all kinds of things. But if you don't warmly welcome them into that speaking engagement and, really kind of unpack what they're going to talk about with your constituency, instead it could turn or look into tokenism, right? Like making people feel like they're super odd or special or other. And that's not what you want to do. You want to make people feel part of the fold and that they have something interesting to share with your group, right? Rather, it's just like, as an example of what's less saying around how, not necessarily what.
Yeah, I know, Kimberly, you have to jump off in a couple minutes.
I do. I was just gonna say that to my friends. I have to jump off. I have a meeting I have to go to, but it was wonderful sharing time with you all. And thank you, David, for the opportunity.
Yeah, great. Well, we'll see you. I'll see you soon, and we'll definitely do this again sometime
Really,
too.
thank you.
Okay, bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
And I mean, I just had one more kind of substantive question, then a kind of a quick question, then we'll wrap up so everyone can get back to work. About, the other night you presented those guidelines that you have about the grant making. So the Rotary Club does all these grants, but you came up with really kind of I wouldn't say top to the bottom of the whole club, but you really took a comprehensive approach about how we can be better in our grants to, for example, fund things that didn't get looked at in the past or do things differently. Could you just describe some of those types of things, what you presented the other night, essentially?
Sure. One thing I do also want to point out is that, while we aren't professionals in this process, one really important thing is that we do have professionals guiding us. So part of our process has been having consultants come in so that we're sure, that we're approaching everything in the right manner and not causing harm, and making sure there things that we may not think about as a group, they're able to bring forward and have us think about. So we even, keep to even more broaden our thinking. So what we did, and some of our tools have come from the committee itself. Sometimes members present things. The different consultants we work with have presented things. And what we came up with was, this actually came from Castro Valley Rotary Club. And they had a tool that you could actually look at how inclusive your grant making process was. Were you involving community members in that process? Were you having community members identify what the challenge was? Are they also involved, in the process with you in creating those different strategies? So that was a tool, and we called it the 4-way test to inclusive and empowering grant making. So that was one tool we had. We have other tools, and some of them like how to run an inclusive meeting. So, how to incorporate icebreakers, or how to make sure you have community shared agreements when you walk into a room together. So, we've been coming up with all types of things. Some of them come from members themselves asking, that they need assistance with different, projects they're working on in their committee. But those were the two tools that we presented that night.
The great tool to compare it to our 4-way test that we have, everybody knows what Rotary is. You got to ask whether or not what you're doing passes the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair? Will it build goodwill and friendships? Better friendship will be beneficial to all. That's the 4-way test. I like to have, in the end, a 4-way test for diversity, equity, and inclusion that would say to us about everything that we do, are we being diverse, equity, and inclusion, and have a prism to look down upon our work that we do in the community. I think that's a brilliant idea that Castro Valley had, and I think we need to tweak it somewhat if we can to come up with our own full way test for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Sure.
Great. And I just had one closing thought and actually an acknowledgement. I wanted to acknowledge that recent award that you got, Seth, for the Quiet Rotarian. I'm going to share those pictures if you don't mind telling us about what that award was for, because I know you've been doing all this great work that I want to highlight, but also see if there's people that you're looking for to join that committee who might be listening to this, if you are looking for additional help on that committee.
Well, the award I got was a bit of a surprise to me. I think President Mary started this one. Is we always had given out our Dan Lazar Good Job Award at the end of every year. And she thought that we shouldn't wait for end of the year to recognize a Rotarian as doing other work outside the club. If you're doing a lot of work outside the club as well as inside the club, she thinks you ought to be recognized. And I was blessed enough to be honored enough to receive the very first Quiet Rotarian Pen Award. I don't have the pen on right now. I could just wear my oak tree pen that I have. But she it's a pen with an oak tree, the Rotary wheel on it as well, then there too. It was for most of my work outside that I do with my foundation, Central Butler Family Foundation. And the work we do is with other nonprofit organizations, as well as with Rotary, other nonprofit organizations that we have out there. And my most recent project was the funding of a new building for a organization called Hidden Genius. And they do work with high school kids. Mainly, they teach them how to code in computer codes, Black and brown kids, to make sure that they do have the tools going forward to operate in this virtual world that we're going in. And they bought a building, and I supported the organization for a while, but I said their vision has to be bigger than themselves. And bigger than themselves meant providing a building that's big enough that you can house other Black-led nonprofits in as well. And they could join that space and not get priced out of the market as rates went up particularly bad just before COVID and even after COVID, and now on a lot of the nonprofits. And it was chasing them out of downtown area space. So we bought a building. So now we have 4 Black-led nonprofits that operate out of that building right now, and we may have some more in the future. That's what it was all about. Okay. I appreciate Rotary giving me that award, and it kind of just expands on a position that I've always held, that Rotary serves. It's the best service organization in the city of Oakland. And I cherish my time with Rotary, and Rotary is like a springboard to everything else that I do.
Yeah, so well put. That's a beautiful story. And we are going to have that speaker, if I'm not mistaken, this week.
This week, Hidden Genius comes on. So that's the great thing about it. We get to listen to Hidden Genius this week.
Okay, great. And Celeste, could you just close if you're looking for anybody to join the committee, and then we'll wrap it up there. And thanks so much, you guys, for coming on. I'll allow you to make any closing remarks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely looking for committee members. There's all kinds of areas to work in. We're working on a resource hub to put up onto our website. So we have resources that we've compiled so that committee members can have a place to go. So we need someone in communications. We need someone to help, thinking through how we will roll out some activity. We have some engagement sessions that we'll be doing in the club. We're actually looking to create an ambassador program so that have ambassadors that come between all committees. So that would be in my perfect world. We'd have a way to be able to cross communicate between, so that we can talk to other committees about challenges or questions we have, and they can do the same. So yes, absolutely. We're looking for new members, and anyone interested, please let us know.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing everything today, and we'll leave it there. We'll definitely check in with you guys again soon. And I'll put all the links to the upcoming events in the chat as well, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, David. And join Rotary, join the DEI committee. That's what we want out of everybody. So
Okay.
get involved with your local Rotary Club, Oakland Rotary number 3, the 3rd oldest Rotary Club in the world, and the best, in my opinion.
Couldn't put it better myself. Well done. Thank you. Bye, everyone.